number 12. 12, 12. Oops. Well, you're gonna have to trust me. But look, there's the 12. And then here, looks like Pluto. And then Aries. Oh yes, you know. All of these are coming into play. What is Pluto and Aries at 1 degree, 2 degrees? 12 is a number wonderful for forgiveness. And so much more. Of course, quadruple, triple check everything I'm saying. This reading is for fun and games, for shits and giggles, for entertainment, for flexing our heart, mind, body, soul, spirit, emotions. Did I say soul? And intuition? And at the most, we hope to cause harm to none, and at the least, we hope we may assist you on your healing path. Welcome to Which to Take with Christina Lisa and Movie Lab number 9 of Psychosociology, a course to free will. Peace. You may call us River, and develop with us which virtues of courage, honor, integrity, truth, and wisdom. Sometimes the loss is such you want to hurt yourself and others, but not really. And so you find that all you can do is watch a movie, TV series, channel stream. Those are the cards you most enjoy playing during those times at this period of your life. And so that's what these movie labs are about. They also help you true your most blessed dreams and help you move from diaspora to surviving, to thriving, to dreams coming true, overcoming the crises, overcoming the victim, and becoming your own heroine or hero. And in this session, we dance with Apple TV's The Discovery of Witches, and a little more introduction. We vibe with the adoption and gypsy aspects on our path, hoping to channel in a way that allows us to learn without study, practice, discipline, punishment, that allows us to develop a healthy Vishuddha, throat chakra, to seek and share our truths instead of becoming distracted, irresponsible, secretive, and alone in our knowledge. And also to develop, grow, nurture authentic, harmonious, honest relationships between ourselves and others. So thank you so much for joining us to help us in these endeavors, and perhaps it assists you on your parallel paths as well. And in this course to free will, we see everybody is a different psychosociology experiment, and only our intentions and actions determine our future. We respect that what resonates for one may not for another, and appreciate the gift of discernment, testing what aligns before deciding what to take and adopt as our own. While the matters of which we speak during these podcasts may seem scary or like we take a side, our mission is to adopt success for one and all, in home, school, business, on the streets, throughout the nations, religions, outer space, deep ocean, coming from a homeless shelter and orphanage, maintaining a safe home, and free will is of the utmost importance to us. Our primal and physical wounds prevent us from playing the good-evil game to fit in, belong, and be accepted. Keeper of earth, moon, and stars, we try to help young through elder human remain remain in the classrooms of their lives. And while we're here, let's share Thich Nhat Hanh's bell mantra for any potential interruptions, like me clearing my throat, a neighbor passing by, a siren perhaps. So Thich Nhat Hanh's bell mantra, if you know it, you can say it along with us, and here we go. So be prepared for a soft bell. Mind, body, speech in perfect oneness. I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety and sorrow. Om. Peace. Shanti. Thank you so much for being here with us in this session. And if this is resonating and you want more at your leisure, you may hang out with us for other spells in our virtual offices via calendly.com/witch2take, substack.com @witch2take, and linktree /witch2take. And that's WITCHTOTAKE, which to take. And for fun and education, you may flip through like a deck of tarot or oracle using your discernment. You can flip through any of those sites. They all look like a deck of cards to me. And so if you're curious and you want more, you can scroll through, say your pretty prayer, and pick one of those. Pick a post that pops up, and if that's not working for you, pick another one. And, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe you spend an hour or 2 or 3. But every now and then it might be just what you need, and, or not, right? Free will is of the utmost importance to us. So thank you for honoring your free will. And if you want to collaborate, you may email us at witch2take@gmail.com. And again, thank you so much for joining us in this podcast. We are in awe of your energy, essence, and arts, and for how gentle you are with yourself, for steering yourself clear of danger, and playing with yourself your cards for the life you need, want, and desire as you and life keep changing into the blue beyond. Thrilling. Thank you so much. You are so special and essential in creating this new earth, and I hope you are having fun with all the transitions that are happening. It's Lionsgate as we are recording this, the 8/8/2025, and we hope you are enjoying the portal and all the miracles and alchemy and wonders it brings. You fill in the blank. And we're just tapping in tonight with the discovery of witches, and there's so many episodes. This one was fun to get into, and perhaps you may enjoy it as well. Checking out the orphan, adoptee, and gypsy, literal and figurative, throughout this series, and being able to have that conversation with yourself and maybe anybody else who you're hanging out with, to help shift from a low to high state of adoption if that is something that you are looking for. And so beautiful. One of the lines in this discovery of witches was, "For every ending there is a new beginning," and that's so Lionsgate. That is so Lionsgate. And also orphan, adoptee, and gypsy. And perhaps you enjoy leaning into this treatment. We don't call it binge watching. We call it treatments, right? Low state of adoption, we called it binge watching, and in high states of adoption, these are treatments that help us get to where we want to go, and all the different ways that we need. And so Apple TV's The Discovery of Witches brought up the figurative orphan around minute 5, when the main character, a descendant of the first Salem witch trials, was executed. And Diana confessed her parents were murdered. Pardon me. And so it may seem random, but it's not. This is part of the energy that we're clearing in this lifetime. Right now, these days, we are clearing up the energy from what was happening during that time, the Salem witch trials, and the different ways that that showed up. And we are not only cleaning up that energy, we are streaming grace to replace. And this is thrilling. So thank you so much for being a part of that. And deep sympathies for those who suffered in your families along the way, including you. And big high fives for how we are transmuting those violent cycles into love, creating heaven on earth. Thank you so much. Minute 1330, a powerful Finnish witch was introduced into the story, hiding in the mountains, which Finland, to my knowledge, doesn't have in real life, but I have not spent much time in Finland, even though I was born there, Suomi. And I sense the mountains in Finland are more like hills. But of course, I got about 40% accuracy, so quadruple, triple check me. But it's fun talking about things like this and seeing what you think. So you can leave comments about, well, no, there are high mountains in Finland. They're like 11,000 feet. Come on, haven't you seen them? And then maybe I'm going to have to schedule a visit. Okay, so let's see what else in this. There's so much in this, so many episodes in this series, and then a couple seasons, so this is a fun one. Okay, creatures were decreasing, demons were dying due to mental illness, vampires were disappearing, witches were losing their witchiness, Dr. Claremont confided to Deanna. If they knew their origins, it may help them. So thrilling and so funny how that's parallel to the orphan and the adoptee, and sometimes even the gypsy. And curious to see how that sits with you, and so much more. This is bringing up so much right now. This, I feel like I sense that, the directive for this script was, okay, talk about this without using these names, and you have to use all these other names. So, you could use different, perhaps like Romani, you can use different races to talk about this, but in this, the discovery of witches, no, you can't. You have to use some other ways to describe it to help get the message across. And so it was really interesting to see how different tropes were addressed through other different tropes. Like, instead of talking about Romani, you're talking about vampires. Some people might say, aren't they the same thing? Okay, it is decades of Romani inclusion, so I don't know. Let's figure it out. Let us know in the comments. What else? Dr. Claremont hung with Charles Darwin seeking answers. Personally, my adoptive my adoptive uncle was fascinated with God. He is, and evolution, and kept a blog on these matters. Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. This is interesting to people, literal and figurative, orphan, adoptee, and gypsy. And sometimes that ends up being, everybody, right? The whole adoption constellation fits into that. And reminding me, even my playmate was fascinated with vampires in pre-elementary school. Like, even people who appear to have nothing to do with vampires or gypsies, but they do. So what do you think? What else? Some want only humans on Mother Earth. Others desire diversity. That was a fascinating point brought up in one of the first episodes. And so, how have you been learning to desire diversity instead of just humans, maybe since 2020, maybe since before? How has that been evolving for you? And moving from a low to high state of adoption. Okay, jumping into season 2, episode 2, minute 13:23. Speaking about Father Hubbard. So you're going to have to watch now to figure out who Father Hubbard is. Matthew says to Diana, they ended up getting married, Matthew and Diana, Under no circumstances are you allowed to let him taste your blood. Why would I? Diana responds. Because it's part of his ritual of adoption. He believes that it reveals the content of their souls. How interesting is that? Adoptees and orphans who are desiring to get adopted, literal and figurative gypsies as well, all the literal and figurative orphan adoptees and gypsies. And then around minute 15, 14 seconds, Father, I give you my blood willingly, that God may know my heart, a convert says to Hubbard. I accept your gift and vow to protect you as my child. God bless you. Now go greet your kin, Hubbard replies. How does that feel? Literal and figurative orphan adoptees and gypsies. Does that remind you of your adoption contract or what you hope it might be? Minute 32 and 8 seconds. Father Hubbard says to Matthew and Diane, once you are family, I will protect you. Isn't that interesting, right? What is on our adoption contract? Domestic and international orphans adopted. Does it say anything like that? Once you are family, I will protect you. Then a little later, Diane says to the coven, pleading to get taught, I was orphaned and spellbound as a child, cut off from my essence as a witch. Oh my God, this was so touching, and I'm curious to how you find it. But minute after minute, episode after episode, I'm like, oh my God, they kept bringing up more and more points. And this one, being orphaned and then being spellbound, I'd never thought about it that way, being spellbound, like being spellbound. And then now that makes sense. For so long it was like I was spellbound, cut off from my essence as a witch, as Diana said, as the script said. And so that was fascinating and fun, and just to be able to tap into that in a different way. And we're just going through these episodes, talking about it, just sort of fleshing it out. There's no right or wrong. It's just sort of, like we said at the beginning, practicing speaking our truths, because for so long we weren't allowed to speak our truths about our heritage or about our adoption. And so to be able to take in a treatment and to be able to speak about it. And so part of what I'm doing is sharing my own process, doing that with this series, and a little more detail than some of the other movie labs. But you can check out some of the other movie labs. There's not as much of my commentary, and you can sort of jump in on your own and make it yours. But this might sort of give you an idea, or give you some ideas about how you may take these movie labs and apply them to your own life and to your own, how do you evolve each year, and what might you do each year, and taking in movie labs, that might be something that you enjoy doing to help yourself evolve and have that conversation with yourself in a very safe and gentle way. Perhaps instead of going to therapy, or not to discount therapy, but we are our own most blessed doctor and therapist, and to honor that for yourself. Okay, so back to this movie lab. What else jumped out at me in that episode? Oh, the coven was suspicious because of Diana's relationship with Matthew, a weir, W-E-A-R-H, otherwise known as a vampire. Is it a were? Were, a vampire. My relationship is not a rejection of my people, Diana responds. And that was intense. Moving from a low to high state of adoption, I didn't want to reject anybody, but there's certain things I can't be a party to. I can't entertain. I can't follow. And then rejection, it is one of the 7 two-faced cards that each human seems to get dealt with each loss, not just the orphan and the adoptee and the gypsy. And what's on the flip side of your rejection card? And can you move from a low to high state of adoption without rejecting the people, even though maybe they're not coming along? Perhaps they're still swimming over there, and they can't, in the rough water, and you can't go in for the save, and you just kind of got to go your separate ways. But it doesn't mean there's a rejection. And maybe maybe there was a rejection for a spell, and then that got flushed through and you streamed grace to replace and you forgave because that was your process. That was part of what you came to do, right? Everybody's a different social science experiment, and we just keep getting to evolve, especially if life continues after death. Wow, lifelong learning just got really long. We get to evolve. The time we need is the time it takes. Okay, season 2, episode 3. Matthew said to Jack, the street orphan, "You are part of our family now, safe from monsters here." And then another line, Diane says to Matthew, "We've barely had a chance to adapt to being parents." Adapt, adopt, there's a 1-letter difference, the A and the O, right? And then, wow, the line about adopting the street orphan, "You're safe from monsters here." Does that bring up something for you? How does that resonate with you? And how is that helping you shift from a low to high state of adoption, hearing that in this treatment in this certain way? Okay, season 2, episode 4, minute 41 and 12 seconds. Isabeau says to Marcus regarding his desire to shake things up as the new Grand Master of the Knights of Lazarus. "Don't tear down the establishment without finding out how it was built or understanding its principles." Oh, this was huge for me because coming from a low state of adoption, moving into a high state of adoption, of course, there's pockets of both on either side, right? We can't get all high and mighty and be like, But, those of us who are deciding to now portal through this lion's gate and move from a low to high state of adoption, if it takes us into the next decade even, as long as it takes us to do it, we've learned in a low state of adoption to help us make that transition, and that is thrilling. And I just learned Tupac has a song about the old school, and without them, we wouldn't be here. And so we really got to thank them and honor them, the old establishment. And that Isabeau speaking to Marcus really honored that was beautiful for me. Let's see, season 2, episode 7, The Blood Rage, reminding me of The Primal Wound, which is a book in the adoptee circuits. The Primal Wound, Understanding the Adopted Child by Nancy Verrier. Maybe you've read it. You can write in the comments what you think about it. It was foundational for me to help honor what was and start moving from a low to high state of adoption. And that primal wound, the blood rage, is it the amygdala, right? And on top of how that can be ingrained or embedded or impressed like footprints in the sand over generations. And now is the time we can clean that away. We can wash that away and stream grace to replace. But if you don't know and you're looking at it from a different point of view, wow, blood rage, oh my God, look at those people with the blood rage. They're like primal. What's wrong with them? But then understanding, no, it's the amygdala, it's the primal wound. Wow, that makes more sense, or maybe that's more fair, right? We're trying to make sure every student succeeds, not just the select few who manage to look and act correct by the letter of the law. Okay, so season 2, episode 9. As we were watching season 2, episode 9, I smelled coffee. It was a really odd hour. It was 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I said something to the effect of how it was odd to my playmate. I'm like, wow, that's really weird. We're smelling coffee right now and it's nighttime. And then just moments before I said this, just moments before a scene where Matthew smells coffee. And he's like, that's weird. It's 1591 in London. This is before they've caught on to coffee. And it alerted him to the fact that there was a time traveler in their midst, because in that time period. Coffee hadn't come yet. So that was super funny. That was super funny. And you might be experiencing with the age of Aquarius, with Uranus, with Pluto, with all the energies, especially this week and next week, that there's this zany stuff that's happening like that. Like, just wild. And you can take note of it and journal it and honor it and enjoy that spiritual evolution and how your clairs may be unfolding or changing or up leveling. And so that's super thrilling. And maybe that comes about when you're relaxing, taking in treatment such as this. Like, that's when it popped up for me. I smelled the coffee at an odd hour, and then the next scene was almost basically the same thing. It was so weird. It was fucking awesome. Okay, so is there a time traveler amidst us now? Are you one of them? It was my clairgustance just kicking in. One of the clairs. Oh, and which clairs of yours, how would you rank them? Which one do you lean into the most? And this is a public forum, so if you do share that, it's a public forum, and so you're willing to deal with whatever comes up, or you may prefer to keep it private, but it's sort of fun in witches circles to talk about that. Like, what are our top 3 clairs that are helping us channel the messages that we are receiving? And so what are they for you? Have you thought about that? And that's something that, thanks to the spiritualist summer camp in Onset at the Wigwam, Reverend Patricia Melman of Mercury Rising taught me. And so you may find spiritualist summer camps in your neck of the woods, or you may visit our neck of the woods and experience the spiritualist summer camps here. They're amazing, and some of them last throughout the year. The First Spiritualist Church of Onset is also amazing. So informative and wonderful to practice and study with. So let's see what else. Minute 11 and 30 seconds. Matthew and Diana's adopted child brought up Diana's time-traveling father. Another little bit of data. Isabel speaking to Marcus about her late husband Philippe. He was always adapting. It reminds me that adapt and adopt are separated by 1 letter. We already said that in this session. She goes on to speak of grief, one of the 7 cards that each human adopting new life after loss seems to get dealt. The 7 cards. Grief. Let's start with loss, right? Loss, grief. We already talked about rejection. Loss, grief, rejection. Mastery and control. Guilt and shame. Intimacy. It explains all the fuckery going on. And identity. Those are the 7 two-faced cards you may hear us bring up again and again. And perhaps you've taken note already and added them to your deck of cards. Okay, so let's see what else in this episode 2, season 9. Isabel says, grief carves a place in the heart and it sits there forever. But when focused, it can become a powerful motivator. Sadness becomes resolve. Pain becomes action. I just appreciated that script. That was beautiful script. Another piece of data in this episode. Diana's father telling her to stop trying so hard as she's trying to weave her 10th knot. He then said something to the effect of, "It's not like you're lassoing a bull," which reminds me of how Venus and Taurus go together and how the bull energy may ground unconditional love from just flying off into the ethers. And you may quadruple, triple check these couple weeks or whenever you're seeing this, where the planets are and where they are in relation to your birth chart. And if you are not in access to your birth chart, God bless it, and us all, however you call God. When you are able to, if you are able to at some point, maybe you can take comfort in just studying and practicing, and each year understanding you'll just learn a little bit more of everything that's in you, because all of that zodiac is in you, and the low and high states of each zodiac. Like, there's a low and high state of adoption, there's a low and high state of each zodiac sign, and perhaps you can just lean into all of that in you and enjoy learning and having that walk with you through life, because it's there. GloryB. And let's see what else. Dana's father telling, oh, that we just said that. Okay, season 3, episode 1 and 2, minute 5, around 30 seconds. Hubbard says to Matthew and his adopted child Jack, who Hubbard cared for after Matthew and Diana abandoned him to go back in time, did you really think a warm bed and food in the belly would heal his broken heart? Right? Love's needed, and it's not just love. It's like we got to study how to love unconditionally and how to get over ourselves, so we're not just knee-jerk reacting when we're tired. And can't you see we're doing the best we can? Can't you see this is just how it is? We can let go of those lines, right? There's so much required when we agree to adopt. It's not just a warm bed, food in the belly, and unconditional love. It takes study and practice. Diana says to Matthew about reuniting with Jack, another chance to have a family with us. Matthew speaking to the fact that vampire families who essentially adopt the new vampires are held together by obedience and discipline. And this was super interesting to me, this part of the story that was flexing out around season 3 of the vampires, and how the vampire family, they adopt new vampires in. That's how new vampires come in. They're not born, they're adopted because they got bit, right? And then just the obedience and discipline, and how that factors into low states of adoption, the obedience and discipline. And we can see it across the board, across Mother Earth and throughout the universes, in the military, in the low states of adoption, and in high states of adoption, how we transform that into self-discipline and just taking sweet care of ourselves. Let's see what else. Matthew saying to Jack, we have a lot of catching up to do, to which Jack responds, or a clean slate, which reminded me of all the families who think they're adopting a clean slate, and that's not the case. Diana saying to Matthew, after he's been ordered by his elder brother Baldwin to kill, they also called it culling, to kill or cull Matthew's adopted son Jack, because he has the blood rage. A father protects his child. Diana says to Matthew, like, you can't go kill or cull your adopted kid Jack. You're supposed to protect it. And how in modern day, this is still a message that gets confused, as we see by our militaries, right? If this message was really integrated, there'd be no military, right? And I could go on and on. Perhaps you want to check into our snap spell. There's a snap spell we have on YouTube, 1, 2, and 3. Humanity snapped out of global transient amnesia. It was released in 2024, around February. Might add to that. Okay, let's see. In season 3, episode 1 or 2, Paddington was highlighted, which made me think of Paddington Bear, another story about people being left behind trying to cope. What else? Fernando, a mate of one of Matthew's deceased brothers, said about Matthew to Jack, he realized his blood rage nature didn't have to determine his destiny. All I taught him was to pause and reflect. Learning control isn't easy or quick. And those of you who have been moving from a low to high state of adoption, perhaps you can really relate to this. And yeah, we're pausing and reflecting. This takes time. This is something I've been working on actively since 2009. And now it's 2025. And perhaps you're going to quantum leap through it and catch on much quicker, because that is the energy. That is this age of Aquarius and the Uranus energy and the Pluto energy. And And some of us, it just may take longer. It's all right, right? The time you need is the time it takes. But this, getting over this primal wound, what people used to see as a blood rage or our nature, but it was really our primal wound. It doesn't have to determine our destiny, and you can learn how to pause and reflect. And by doing these movie labs, you're actively doing that. You're pausing and reflecting. So fucking yay you. All right, let's see what else. Matthew says to the scientists garnered to help find a cure for the blood rage, we've been vilified and hunted because people fear what they don't understand. And you can just look at that playing out all around Mother Earth, all the people who are being called evil right now because we don't understand. They're just grief-struck by loss. We've been taught to see their evil instead, which allows us to cut one person off after another, but now we're devoted to every student succeeds, and if we believe in evil, well, then that's going to get in the way. That's going to cut off one person after another instead of making sure every student succeeds. So we got to let go of our belief in evil and believe in something different, and we can believe, wow, people aren't evil, they're just grief-struck by loss, possessed by grief, and perhaps it's not my turn to serve the unconditional love and the unarmed truths. And you can step away and let somebody else help. And we can let go of talking about people and believing about people as if they're evil. We can just honor that they're grief-struck by loss, possessed by grief, and it's not always our turn to serve. And steer clear of the danger, right? Get out of the way. Take care of ourselves. What else? Matthew asks Benjamin, his son, the one he sired in a blood rage, what do you want? To which Benjamin responds, the whole family together. I'm laughing, my witchy laugh, like, oh my God, all the people who want their whole family together. But now when you're in season 3, episode 1 of this series, and Benjamin says that, it brings a whole new light together to it. It's like, oh no. Moving from a low to high state of adoption, or are we? Or is there a revenge plot? Because, oh my God, trip and fall, grief-struck by loss. Drag another down with you because it's really challenging. That loss is so much we want to hurt ourselves or someone else, but not really. But before we get to that point, perhaps it looks like Benjamin in this series. Season 3, episode 3. Scientist, pardon me, Chris says to Miriam, you can't choose your family, right? To which Miriam responds, well, that's not entirely true. For vampires, you just have to live with your choices for a long time. It's just helping have a sense of humor for everything we've gone through, orphans, adoptees, gypsies, vampires, and everybody in the adoption constellation. That's all of us, right? And yeah, living with our choices. And if life continues after death, and our lifelong learning just got really long, and perhaps now is a beautiful time through this Lion Gate or whenever you're watching this to help release everything attached to that low state of adoption, flush it out, and stream in grace to replace. And thrilling times we're in. And so fun to have media like this Discovery of Witches to assist. What else? Season 3, episode 3, Ransom says to Marcos about Matthew, he can't change what's already happened, but he can own it. That's such a big deal. Like, people say, oh, you can't change the past, but you can own it. I mean, owning it, that goes a long way, right? Coming from a low state of adoption to a high state of adoption, whatever part of the adoption constellation you're in, just being able to own it and say, yeah, wow, I fucked up. That was fucked up. Not, not just the run-of-the-mill, like, oh, you're just young and didn't know, or but owning it, owning it. Yeah, no, we were young, we didn't know. Now we've grown and we care to learn to do something different. And isn't that thrilling? And to be able to own it and to be able to apologize sincerely and perhaps that episode interests you to see how they apologized through that, through trying to cull your own family, right? Which is a genocide or a Holocaust or a war. And how do you say you're sorry when you did that? And so perhaps you may appreciate that and see how in high states of adoption, yeah, we do forgive. There is no unforgivable. We do forgive. And we ask for forgiveness. We give forgiveness. We apologize. And this is just some samples of what that may look like. And so that's thrilling. Congregation vampire leader Pierre says to one of his dominions, "Good boy." And the congregation witch leader says it to one of his dominions as well, "Good boy." Like, oh my God, just say hi. You know, all the times we're telling our little kids, just say hi, be a good boy, be a good girl. And then they grow up and they're, pardon me, still trying to be a good boy or good girl to fit in and not sovereign, being held captive. And perhaps you're deciding, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to be the good boy or the good girl. I don't need to be patted on the head like a dog. Pardon me. And I don't need those accolades. And I don't need to give those accolades. I don't need to talk to my animals like that. I don't need to talk to my people like that. I can meet them more authentically where they are instead of using them as my emotional support and security. Minute 39:20. Matthew takes responsibility for culling Marcus's family by mentioning each by name and when he killed them. One of them was Fabienne Goody, who gave her time to the orphan asylums in the city. Right? Discovery of witches. This one's deep. Oh my God, we're getting into it. Okay, season, we got just a little more. We got about 10 more little pieces of data going through season 3, episode 4, 5, and 6. Episode 4, Matthew's human DNA possessed the triggers the blood rage needed to express itself. And, you know, just translating that into the primal wound, you know, what triggers are there for the primal wound that makes it express itself? And, you know, daily there's triggers that primal wound needs to express itself. And it's the low states of adoption from like the plethora of commercials about, you know, helping your needy dog fix its vagus nerve, or, you know, the adoption, the orphan, the gypsy, the adoptee trope showing up within the first 5 minutes of virtually every treatment that you watch, to the adopt an orphan on Wednesday, right? All the different triggers that happen in a day for the primal wound of the adoptee to express itself. And again, I'm bringing up The Primal Wound by Nancy Verrier. That was one of the foundational pieces for me when I started coming out of the closet, and I was 25, 1995. It wasn't till 98 that I met one side of the family, 2000 the other side of the family, but it still took decades after that to process, to clear space, to leave. I had to leave everything behind to have the space to be able to hear and do the work, and to be able to work from home and do the work. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do everything and do my personal work. I had to step away in 2009, and it was all fitting. It was all part of the journey, Pluto's journey at that time, 2008 to 2025. There's a big switches, big changes. I'm not sure if I'm getting all the astronomy right, but now there's another shift coming through, and perhaps that's you, or you were on the first shift, and whichever way, GloryB, or maybe you're just thinking about it, and isn't this exciting? To move from a low to high state of adoption, and all the different ways you can call that. And I'm wondering if you've seen anything in the crystal ball as we've been sitting here. Let us know how your scrying is developing and unfolding. All right, let's see what else here. Minute 24 of episode 4, season 3. You feel guilty for the culling. And guilt and shame is one of the adoption cards. And again, the 7 adoption cards: loss, grief, rejection, mastery and control, guilt and shame, identity, and intimacy. The intimacy card just helps explain all the fuckery that's going on. I just need to keep sharing that because it could be really disturbing for some people, right? Like, oh my God, there's all these pedophiles running around. No, it's just the intimacy card. We can heal that. And God bless all those, right? God bless it and us all, however you call God, for what's happened already, right? Because it's been really devastating. But the silver lining is we can heal, and we are healing. All right, season 3, episode 4, Baldwin says to Matthew, why all the secrecy? You can't just divorce yourself from your family. What did he say right after that? I can't read my notes. I don't know. You'll have to go look yourself. But that secrecy, and you can't divorce yourself from your family, and all the lines that get shared in low states of adoption when you're in an adopted family or an orphanage or a treatment center, the secrecy, and moving from a low to high state of adoption. If your family doesn't want to come, what are you going to do? And so that was interesting. And it was reminding me of some of the tropes that go through, or the gaslighting that happens in low states of adoption when the orphan and adoptee and gypsy is confronting what's happening. It's before they've stepped out of the closet. They're like, wait a minute. And then they get that. Pardon me. Okay, season 3, episode 5. Fernando asks Sarah, how does it feel to be here again? To which she responds, it's hard, but the babies help. Which reminds me how we feed off the precious life for the babies. Oh my God. I have cut back. I try not to feed into the baby reels because, wow, they are so precious. And it is, we do feed off them. They're precious life force. They do make us feel better, but I prefer to make myself feel improved than siphon off that precious life force of a baby at this juncture in my life. And that's part of why I moved from a low to high state of adoption, to set those babies free, including myself. And then what else? Season 3, episode 5. Matthew speaks about stopping the shame. He admits that's done more harm than the blood rage. That guilt and shame card that we brought up, one of the 7 cards that we all get dealt with each loss, that guilt and shame, it's one of the lowest vibrations that we can experience. And what is on the flip side of your guilt and shame card? Is it compassion, understanding, forgiveness? And to step away from that as much as possible if you are deciding to move from a low to high state of adoption, because that's the big shift, right? Matthew is saying in this episode, episode 5 of season 3, that shame has done more harm than the primal wound. That guilt and shame's been done more harm than the blood rage, and which I'm relating to the primal wound of adoptees and orphans and gypsies, literal and figurative. And so what can we do to flip that guilt and shame card over is to first notice all the times in a day it pops out, and to use that Maitri, Pema Chodron, 108 teachings about becoming comfortable with uncertainty, talks about Maitri, that loving kindness to yourself. And it's, if you trip and fall, that kind reproach, how do you kindly reproach yourself and be like, oops, there's that guilt and shame card again, instead of beating yourself up. Oh my God, that guilt and shame card, you're such an idiot. No, how do you exercise that kind reproach? Oh, there's that guilt and shame card again. Got to flip it over. And shifting yourself as many times a day as you need to shift from a low to high state of adoption. And so that was interesting. Season 3, episode 5. Season 3, episode 6, GloryB speaks to the covenant about being broken. Unless the vampires provide the leadership, only chaos will follow. Also, he mentions how Philippe thought Matthew killed Benjamin, when in fact he weaponized him. Isn't that interesting? So Matthew sired Benjamin and then left him and thought that that would kill Benjamin, but it didn't. It just made Benjamin so pissed he wanted to kill Matthew. And how that plays out in modern time in orphans, adoptees, and gypsies being cast off, all the literal and figurative. We think it's going to teach them a lesson, but no, it weaponizes them. And then there's all these acts of violence. And in high states of adoption, we choose a different way. Matthew wouldn't have abandoned Benjamin thinking that would kill him. He would have chosen something different, and it wouldn't have played out that way. And we can do similar things to help decrease the acts of violence that happen because we're operating in those states of adoption, thinking we're going to teach people lessons, and no, it's just pissing them off and causing them to take down the towers. God bless it, and us all. Thank God we can do something different, and we're now having an opportunity to do so with our own free will. That is thrilling. That is thrilling. That is the silver lining. And I am so thrilled. We are so thrilled to be doing it with you, building this new earth. Let's see what else. Matthew speaking to Benjamin about creating a narrative that only suited himself. The wronged son, abandoned, damaged, paying back his father's sins. And that was reminding me how in low states of adoption, we think we know the adoptee is taking this, they're acting like the victim. We think they know their story, and they get shuffled off. And this, you're just feeling sorry for yourself. And it was reminding me of that. And then, that narrative, it's one of the standards in 10th grade English, learning to write. You have 6 different types of writing that you are expected to learn how to write, and narrative is one of them. And what's really relevant is how it relates to yourself, right? How does the education become important? Well, it helps you make your dreams come true, right? And so how do you change your narrative, moving from a low to high state of adoption, and own it in a proud way, and be thrilled with that? And if you're curious, you can check out our blogs. They're open for a retrograde spell. You can see what we've done since 2009, going back and forth and all around like a family circus, going from a low to high state of adoption. Or perhaps you want to share yours. Let's see, 2 more data bits. Benjamin reminds Matthew how strong the blood rage was at first. It cuts you in 2. And yeah, when you are moving from a low to high state of adoption and you start to recognize all that you've swept under the carpet, and perhaps also recognizing, wow, my family's not coming with me, it cuts you in 2, and some don't make it. And God bless it, and us all. And before Matthew tries to deliver the final blow to Benjamin, it's not your fault. I wasn't a good father, he says. And that just reminded me of oh my God, all the mothers and fathers who are in the low state of adoption, and that's their line. Oh, I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good father. And then, but I am. See what I'm doing? Look, I'm doing this all for you. And we don't have to do that anymore in a high state of adoption. Each time that comes up, we can use that as our red flag to tag out and to care sweetly for ourselves. All the different cards we have in our Stacked for Life Worth Living deck of cards to help us play through the loss, the times it hurts so much we want to hurt someone else or ourselves, but not really. And that is thrilling. That is the silver lining. What we are doing instead of that fighting spirit is summoning that adoption spirit and just taking time each day to tune into our bodies. What are we feeling? How are we feeling? Taking time to hydrate, taking time to rest, tagging out if we're mad. All right, we're no longer charging around mad or sad. We're using those as our white and red flags to tag out, to give ourselves treatments. And how thrilling is that? 2025, oh my God, this is one of the most thrilling times I've seen in my life since 1970, and I hope you are enjoying the ride and enjoying the evolution and And if you are struggling, we are sending you big hugs and loves, and thank you for asking for support from the people you trust that are near you, that you can really lean on during these times. And you can check our links for more ideas or for more references, or perhaps you tap into our Orphans Oracle on Substacks. Every Monday is a new article. It began in May, so you can catch up. It's like a personal professional development plan aligned with your heart and mind, and moving from the fighting spirit to the adoption spirit, from a low state of adoption to a high state of adoption. And then in our link tree, you may find other Roma, other Gypsy, other adoptees, other orphans, to tap into different people, right? Everybody's a different psychosociology experiment. And so you may find you resonate with others and that you enjoy tuning in with them, and to honor that. And so I think that's it. What else do we got to say? Thanks again for tuning in, for playing your cards, for steering clear of danger. Ciao for now. We love you all.